Guys, I used the last of the coffee in this container, set it on the counter. I looked at it and I thought, this would make a cool survival kit. I like building out survival kits. It's an exercise that just keeps me sharp on the items that I need, and a lot of times it starts to advance and I start to get better items. This is a perfect size to make a decent size survival kit. No, it's not all encompassing, but it's also not an Altoids 10 with the very bare minimum. This to me would get you at least ahead in a survival situation. So we're going to open it up, take a look at all the contents. There are a couple of things I'm going to do to the outside as well once we get finished. But guys, I base all of my survival preps on the rule of threes. That means you can live 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in harsh conditions, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and medical and self-defense flow in between. And there are some other things to consider. And we're trying to consider all those in this small little can. The great thing is it goes into a vehicle, it goes into a pack, it goes wherever you want to. It's fairly, sturdy, so it's not going to collapse on you, and so it doesn't mess up the things that are in your survival kit. But we're also going to take all these items and we're going to put them in a pouch, and we're just going to see how they fit. And guys, if you don't have a survival kit around, it's great to have them set aside because you never know when you might need these items. It doesn't have to be in a zombie apocalypse. It could be a personal SHTF. All right, guys, it's packed out. We're going to open it up, and I'm going to show you the contents, why I have each item in there. We are going to be doing some things to the outside. We'll do that at the end. Just going to go through and look at it. Of course, the lid comes right off. In any container, when you pick a container, look for the larger items that you're going to need, that you're going to put inside. One of the things that led me to this size and why I thought about it was it's perfect for a Frontier filter straw water filter. And so it gave me enough size to be able to get to that. And then the rest of it, I just fit as I could. So any items, especially those that are a specific size. First off, we're going to start out with paracord. You need cordage. This is 7-strand paracord, and each of these strands that are inside actually have 3 strands. So it gives you a lot of different options, and these are used for parachutes. This is the cord used for parachutes. So this is something that when guys would land, they'd cut some of their cord off and they could carry it with them and use it. But it's really strong. It'll take up to 550 pounds. Bank line also works well. Okay, we're going to go next let's just go ahead and pull out one of the big ones, and this is just a knife. You need a good solid knife. I would get the largest knife that I could place in here, and this is just an old Cold Steel, and it's one of the Voyagers. I've had this thing for years, and it's just a good solid knife. Now, one of the things about the knife, and I want to preface this, is you need to be able to strike a ferro rod with this. So if it's stainless steel, sometimes it won't strike the ferro rod. This one does. It has enough carbon in it. All right, for signaling, we've got a whistle. Let's see, we've got our fire steel. Now, this is one of the Exotac fire rods. These things are excellent. And again, you just got to make sure that whatever blade you're using, you can create spark. And that is something that I have put knives before in my packs that wouldn't strike a fire steel. Next, this is a little bit larger item, but we have a med kit. And so this just gives us a basic IFAK. It is not necessarily a trauma kit. Really, you can't fit that in here. I like to have that separate. But this gives you all the small things of bandages and antibiotic ointment, different items that I need. And this is actually from AR-500 Armor, and I got this a few years ago. It really just fits well, but gives me some form of first aid. Now we have some fire tinder, and this is vital when it comes to your fire starting. And so this is Vaseline and cotton balls. It lights really easy. It's very cheap to make. And so this just gets you started, then you can put the wood with it. Next, we have an emergency space blanket. Now, I don't typically keep these cheap type blankets. This is just Mylar. You can wrap this around your body. It will retain your body heat. And so this is one thing these are super cheap. They're easy and compact to place wherever. It's a very temporary type emergency tool, but it will work in a tight situation. A lot of times with medical purposes, they wrap people in this to keep their body temperature and keep them going into hypothermia. So this is just a basic item. Next, we have a compass. I've even got some instructions on here that's just tied to it. It's an old Sunto compass. It's been around for a while. I like the flat size of it. Don't get the little button compasses. They may or may not work. this one works really well. And that's for navigation. Next, we have a Frontier filter straw, and these are made by Aquamira. These will filter up to 11 gallons of water. They're super small, and these are just easy to use. So I really like these for their size. They do make some larger sizes that I like, but this is really my favorite. One that you can place in here is one of the Sawyer Minis. But you can't put all the additional parts to it in here, so I really chose the Frontier filter straw. Next, we have a small multi-tool, and this is just a Leatherman Juice. It's an S2, and so it gives me some capability. It's not large, but it's not bad. It's not one of the mini micro multi-tools. This gives me a little bit more leverage and a little bit more power. You could put a larger multi-tool in here, but it's going to take up a lot more room. Now I have a small flashlight, and the reason I chose this flashlight, in fact, this is just a generic flashlight, but it does allow for a AAA battery, and that way I can store up a couple of extras. It's not necessarily rechargeable, so if I'm in a survival situation, and one thing that I failed to put in here was at least a couple of extra batteries, but it gives you just enough light. Now obviously you've got your EDC, and you should have that in your pocket. But having a little bit of a light is great, just in case the light that you have for some reason doesn't work. Also, we have a bandana. There's a bazillion uses for this. And I'll tell you guys, this will keep the smoke out of your face. If there's a lot of dust and debris, you can make this into a hobo sack. You can carry things in it. I mean, you can wipe your face. You can put it around your neck. I mean, there's a million reasons to have a good bandana. They go into all my survival kits. Next, redundancy again with fire. And we have one of the little torch lighters, and so this has a cover, and you know, it just puts that flame out. You can't really see it that well because of the light. But this is a very quick way to start fire, and it's really easy. And you could substitute that with a Bic lighter. But this goes with my fire kit. And then I have a small little fishing kit. And really, mainly I have the safety pins, but just in case I need a fishing kit. And this is so small that it will fit in here without any trouble. And so I really like this option. Am I going to use a fishing kit? It's going to have to get pretty desperate. But this is so tiny, it just kind of slips in there. Now, based on the rule of threes, you can live 3 minutes without air. And so I want to protect my breathing. And this just helps me to cover my face, again, with smoke, dust, debris. And it gives me just a way to filter out a little bit of the heavy particles. And so this is for my first rule of threes. But next comes 3 hours in harsh conditions. So I'm going to include my bandana for that because I can wrap this around my neck. I can wrap it around my head. And this just gives me, you know, a little bit more warmth, a little bit insulation. But also we need our space blanket. And this is going to keep us warm. Again, you can only live 3 hours in extreme harsh conditions. And honestly, that is whether it's super cold or really hot. If you're in an arid climate. And this can actually be used as a shelter. It can be used as a windbreak. And so this just gives you some shade if you need it. But then again, in the cold weather, this is going to be invaluable to wrap your body. Also, with that, you need a way to keep yourself warm. So that's where the fire kit comes in. Again, we have our tinder and our fire steel, and we have a lighter. I like to have redundancy. You may want to go with some waterproof matches or something, but you want to have a fire kit because you want to be able to start fire. Next, we have 3 days without water. Now, that means that you're going to get dehydrated, and by 3 days, you're not going to be able to move. Your body's going to start to cramp up. So having water, especially if it's very strenuous, this is going to be vital from day one, being able to have a fresh water supply. You can't drink out of standard creeks and streams, and so this just gives you the ability to filter out, again, about 11 gallons of water. Now, we included the fire kit again because this also can boil your water. Now, you'll need a container, and that's one thing that this will not be good at is for boiling water. So you may have to find something to boil your water. But this does give you the option to be able to boil it if you can find a container. And again, this gives you the option for a container. So you can fill this with water, you can carry it with you, you can filter it as you go. The one problem with a filter straw is that you're going to be limited to that area right around water sources. So this gives you a way to carry some of that water if you need to. Now next we're going with medical, and we're going to again include our bandana because we can use that for certain purposes. We can wrap up wounds, we can wrap up certain items that we use out of here just to give it a better layer protection. You could actually use this as a splint or for splint. So having the medical is vital and it's something you're going to need. Guys, if you want to upgrade it, you're just going to have a bigger container. But for this container, having this small little IFAK gives you enough tools to be able to use. Now when it comes to navigation, that's an important element, and signaling with the whistle. And so if you get lost, these two items are going to be vital for signaling and for rescue. Being able to get yourself out of a situation, and again, being able to make noise. One of the things about yelling or hollering out if rescuers are looking for you is you're going to run out of air quick and your voice is going to get hoarse. And this takes a lot less energy to blow that whistle, and it goes a lot longer distance. Now paracord can also be used to make an improvised shelter. So this is also part of the 3 hours in harsh conditions. That way you can take logs, you can tie them up, you can lay logs on top of those. You don't necessarily need a whole lot of this, you just need to use it in the right places. And so paracord can help you to build a shelter. And of course the tools are important. A knife is one thing that you really need to have. It is the basic tool of man. This has been around from the beginning. Man fashioned knives right up front, and then they just got better and better. For me, I have an EDC knife that I'm always carrying, but I like to have redundancy. And again, the multi-tool just gives you so many different options, especially with all the different tools that are attached to this one. You know, it's just one of those things that gives you a lot of options for its size. Now duct tape, and obviously this is too big to fit in the container, so we're going to wrap this around the outside of the container. Now here we have the can, but we've just transferred all the different items into this pouch. So you can set this up however you want to. The only downside I see to the pouch really is that we have a container with this, and this just gives us a way to carry water or whatever we want to. But otherwise, we've got everything in here. And so it's really packed out. This is the Smolder by Roaring Fire Gear. It's a really solid wax canvas pouch. And we have these paracord pulls. We're going to go ahead and open up everything and just take a look. And guys, we just have everything placed in here. I mean, here at the back, I have the space blanket or the Mylar blanket. And then, of course, all the different items. And then here we have a little zippered compartment. These are items that really don't fit that well into these little elastic straps. And so I just can have the loose items set in here, even with the paracord, and then it flips over, and I've got the rest of my items here. This is very organized. I can find it really easily. It's a little bit easier than it is in the container. So this is actually a little bit more practical, but you know, you don't have to necessarily spend the money to buy a pouch to do that, and you can just have this set in the back. It's really whatever works best for you as far as the pouch. Again, there's a ton of different options. All right, we're going to wrap some Gorilla Tape, or any kind of duct tape you can put on here. I would remove the label. I think the label's going to stick to the Gorilla Tape. The one thing about this is that you can use this later. And so we're just going to go ahead and pull this off. It comes off really simple. There is a little bit of adhesive right here. That's not really going to hurt much. But we want to go ahead and put on multiple layers of duct tape. And so we're just going to get it started, and we can put it on the outside. Now you can again reuse this when you want to, and guys, duct tape has so many uses, but really this is a way just to add a little bit but not a lot of bulk. Now I would go ahead and put a couple of rounds around here to give you enough to be able to really use. I mean, you can repair things, your pants tear, you can repair it. If you want to build a shelter, you can actually use this to tie together logs. Now this also gives this a little bit more strength to the container. But you can just peel this off and use it whenever you need to. And again, there's just so many uses. And it will retain its adhesive form against the bottom of the duct tape or Gorilla Tape. Then we're going to put all the items back in it, and then we're going to seal it around with some Gorilla Tape just to hold it into place. This lid can come off fairly easily. The one problem with that is if you do it, it's going to be difficult if you need to get into it to have to remove that duct tape every time. So that's just your call. Now when putting your items in here, you want to think it through before you put them in, because certain items that are larger, you're going to want to get those in first. Some of the ones that are just bigger and unusually shaped. that are going to be harder to fit, and then these smaller items you can place as you get those in. And now we got everything stuffed in it, and we're ready to go. We're going to go ahead and tape up that outside. All right, we've got it all together. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. You can label it actually with a list of the things that you have in here. You could actually put a label on top or inside. And that way, you know what you have. You can put a label on here that says survival kit, and there you go. Pack that away. Of course, you'll know what that is, but for others that might find it, they'll know. We can take the whole thing, dump it out, and we're ready to survive. And here we have all the items laid out. And again, there'll be a list down below in the description. Guys, it's a fun exercise. It gets you in the mindset of survival, knowing the items that you need. You may not even have them in a container, but putting together these will help you if you need to find the items. Maybe you're at a store and you need these certain items for grid down. This would give you a list to be able to use. And I'll have a list down below in the description. If there are other items that you would put in this size survival kit, leave it down in the comments below. It's always good to have a community of people that are working together. The more of us, the stronger we are. Guys, when it comes to fire, it is essential to survival, and having a good fire kit and knowing how to use it is vital for survival situations. And Exotac makes the best fire starters on the market. Made in the USA, down in Winder, Georgia. Using really high-grade aluminum, they machine some really beautiful handles, a lot of different features, replaceable Fero rods, and a number of other different fire starting tools. You get 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description. And a big thank you to Exotac for sponsoring today's video. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. So we're going to take a look at building out a survival kit right here. And really, hopefully, it's just a renewal. Okay. Which means 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without, okay. Well, actually, I switched to other coffee, but just happened to find this one. Okay. Sell that crap. And, you know, we just don't even remember what was in the freaking can. Really, the shape and size, I know, that's what she said. The shape and size is important, and that's what she said. Nah, let's not do that. Let's just end it there. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.